What exactly does Jacques Derrida mean by deconstruction? And no, it does not simply mean destroying or breaking down a text. Deconstruction is a way of reading that asks how a text produces meaning and where that meaning becomes unstable. Welcome to Reading Otherwise. Today, our topic of discussion is deconstruction. To understand this, let's go back to an idea we discussed in structuralism: binary opposition. Structuralists look at oppositions such as presence and absence, speech and writing, nature and culture, and ask how these relationships produce meaning. Derrida takes this further. He asks, are these oppositions really as stable as they appear? Usually, the two terms aren't treated equally. One is privileged over the other. Speech is often valued over writing, presence over absence, reason over emotion. So we don't just have an opposition, we have a hierarchy. And this is where deconstruction becomes interesting. Derrida doesn't simply reverse the hierarchy and say, actually, writing is superior to speech. Instead, he examines why one term is privileged in the first place and whether the supposedly inferior term is actually necessary for the privileged term to have meaning. Let's take speech and writing. In the Western philosophical tradition, speech was often treated as closer to the speaker's thought. Writing was considered secondary, a representation of something that already existed in speech. But Derrida asks us to look again. If writing can preserve, repeat, and communicate someone's words, even when that person is absent, then the qualities associated with it writing, absence, repetition, representation, aren't simply weaknesses. They reveal something about language itself. And now let's bring this into literature. Take Paradise Lost. A deconstructive reading doesn't begin by asking, is Satan good or evil? Instead, it might ask how the poem constructs opposition, such as good and evil, obedience and rebellion, divine authority and individual freedom. And then look for moments where the language of the poem complicates those apparently stable distinctions. In other words, we are not looking for a hidden true meaning behind the text. We are looking at the tensions within the text itself. And this brings us to one of Derrida's most important terms, difference. The word plays on the ideas of difference and deferral. A sign gets its meaning through its difference from other signs, but that meaning also leads us to other signs. So meaning is never completely self-contained or finally fixed. This doesn't mean that a text can mean absolutely anything. It means that the text may contain tensions that prevent its meaning from becoming as final and stable as we initially assumed. Now let me make difference a little easier with a simple example. Take the word lion. Its denotation is an animal, but culturally, the word can also suggest strength, courage, or power. Now imagine a king being described as a lion. We move from lion to strength, from strength to power, and from power to authority or kingship. And if we move from power to absolute power, we may arrive at another sign, dictator. So, we can imagine the movement as lion, strength, power, king, authority, dictator. Now, I'm not saying that these words are synonyms. They obviously aren't. The point is that one sign can lead us to another through associations and differences. And when we try to explain the meaning of one sign, we often need other signs to do it. This is where Derrida's difference becomes useful. Difference, a sign gets its meaning in relation to other signs. Deferral. When we try to fix that meaning completely, it keeps sending us towards other signs. So meaning is produced, but it never becomes completely self-contained or final. That continual movement of meaning is what Derrida helps us notice through the idea of difference. So when you apply deconstruction to a literary text, don't simply ask, what does this text mean? Ask, how does the text construct this meaning? Which term is being privileged? What does the hierarchy depend upon? And where does the text itself begin to complicate that hierarchy? That's the basic movement of deconstruction. Structuralism looks for the structures that produce meaning. Deconstruction examines those structures and asks how stable they really are. And once you understand that distinction, Derrida becomes much easier to read.